Focus on breathe, baby. God damn it, breathe. God damn it, you bitch! You never backed away from anything in your life! Now fight! 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 Right now! Do it! Fight! God damn it! Fight! Fight! Fight!
Legendary warriors, the powers that created us now want us all extinguished. We must join forces, or else forever be their slaves. For today, in the name of freedom, we take the battle to them. Let's roll.
Here in moments.
The ultimate gala spectacle.
Holy Mother of God on earth and in heaven at the exact same time.
You want a piece of me? You got it!
Can you imagine paying that money for tuition? Oh yeah, my sophomore was burning the place down yesterday and threw a bike rack through the window. I'm so proud of him.
Look, it's the home of free speech from the 1960s, all those protests about free speech, and yet this guy comes, it's the finale of his college tour. He's a libertarian, he's an editor at Breitbart. They're so intolerant of hearing the other side. They have this gigantic, violent protest that turns into property damage. They had police there, campus police, who said, hey, you know what, if you kids get out of line, we're going to arrest you.
And watch you.
You know what? I think destroying the Starbucks qualifies. But this morning I looked at some of the California papers. I didn't see anybody.
Or the guy who was spraying pepper spray in that Trump supporter's face, that girl's face. You know, these are the people that preach tolerance, love everybody. And when someone comes to the campus...
Here she gets sprayed.
When someone comes to the campus, they don't agree with their opinion. They burn the campus.
By the way, this guy from Berkeley happens to be British, he happens to be conservative, and he happens to be gay.
Right.
So congratulations, Tolerant Berkeley, that you really made a great statement there. The statement is, don't go there.
Well, Donald Trump tweeted this morning about it. He said, if UC Berkeley does not allow free speech and practices violence on innocent people with a different point of view, no federal funds, question mark. What do you think about that? Do you think that the school should still get federal funds?
We find out about 2 private diplomatic calls with the Mexican leader and with the Australian leader that have leaked out. Before we get to the contents of it, Kellyanne, is this something that really rankles the White House, that these transcripts have gotten out?
It's very unfortunate. Obviously, we're not commenting on private conversations in that way. We give a readout to the media on most conversations, but we don't release transcripts, and we certainly don't mischaracterize them as some others have. This is the practice for us, though. We're the ones not leaking. You saw it with the earlier reports. You see it here. You know, you're a little bit hamstrung when you're the ones upholding either the law or, frankly, upholding a gentleman's agreement to not release.
Who did it?
Well, you can make your own conclusions, but again, this will be mischaracterized by the media. They will pounce on this because it's a heck of a lot better for them as a storyline today than covering the fact that the president and his daughter made a trip to Dover Air Force Base yesterday to receive the family of our brave fallen Ryan Owens in Yemen. It's a heck of a lot easier than figuring out what he'll say at the prayer breakfast today in front of people of multi-religious denominations. It's easier than talking about the amazing Rex Tillerson, our new Secretary of State.
No, we're going to get to that.
This is my whole point about the presumptive negativity.
Sure.
This is my whole point about the presumptive negativity. And Brian, by the way, to your earlier point, the Democratic Party, we're seeing it unravel in front of our eyes, and we're seeing it be revealed in front of our eyes. A bunch of crybabies who say that they're going to oppose Supreme Court nominees before they even know the person's name and his academic credentials and impeccable judicial record. They are holding up our nominees to the cabinet. I was told yesterday this is the longest that the nation has gone without a Secretary of the Treasury, at least in modern times. If it's not the longest, it's darn close to it. We need a Secretary of Treasury, folks. For those who actually go to work in the morning and need the dollar to flourish, we need a Secretary of Treasury to be running things. This obstinance and obstruction is the modern Democratic Party. I think it's going to cost them because they're hysterical about everything now. You can't even, there's no gradation of hysteria. It's everything makes them cry and scream.
Officials in Iran say that they will not bow to the useless threats from the United States, unquote. That's after the White House put Iran on notice over its recent ballistic missile tests. The top advisor to the country's supreme leader responding to the administration, mocking President Trump's inexperience, and adding that the missile tests will continue. Jennifer Griffin live at the Pentagon. Jennifer, the Iranians insist they did not violate any resolutions.
That's right, Shepard. Iran's defense minister said that the missiles Iran tested are defensive, not nuclear capable, and therefore not in violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2231. The Pentagon disagrees. The UN Security Council has referred the issue for further investigation. House Speaker Paul Ryan came to the defense of the White House today.
I would be in favor of additional sanctions on Iran. I think I'd like to put as much toothpaste back in the tube as possible. I think the last administration appeased Iran far too much. I think they went too far with Iran, and I think as a result, Iran is far more activist than it otherwise would be.
That's, of course, what the Israeli prime minister is calling for as well, more sanctions. Netanyahu said he would raise the issue of more sanctions against Iran when he meets the president on February 15th. Shep.
And how's all this flying there at the Pentagon?
Well, senior defense officials I've spoken to said they were not consulted per se about Mike Flynn's statement at the White House yesterday. They agree that these ballistic missile tests, however, are a clear violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2231. The Pentagon has no problem putting Iran on notice, I'm told. Some of whom I've spoken with say they would not have included the Houthi attack on the Saudi warship in the Flynn statement. According to one senior defense official, this watered down the message of Iran's ballistic missile breaches. Right now, the U.S. does not have an aircraft carrier in the Gulf, Shep, only the second time that has been the case since 2008. U.S., British, and French warships, however, are participating in pre-planned military exercises right now in the Persian Gulf amidst all of these heightened tensions. Shep.
Jennifer Griffin, thank you. And more now on the
Let's get some analysis of the Iran situation and the diplomatic moves. Syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer joins me now from Washington. Charles, your thoughts on the latest statements about Iran and the moving towards these new sanctions?
Well, we have to understand that ever since the Obama administration signed the nuclear agreement, it has been very reluctant to do anything about the other aggressions that Iran has been involved in, meaning non-nuclear stuff, meaning supporting terrorists and terrorism around the region, meaning supporting proxies, and of course the most important is the illegal ballistic missile launches which threaten Israel, Europe, and ultimately the United States. In a sense, the Obama administration was self-deterred. It was afraid that if it imposes sanctions or if it does anything more drastic, Iran will pull out of the nuclear agreement. It's already collected up front billions of dollars and revived its economy, and also cashed in on the dissolution of the international sanctions, which will never be reinstated. China and Russia won't go along with it. So what the Trump administration is doing is saying, those days are over. We are not afraid of you doing something to the nuclear deal. We are going to respond point by point to the violations in terms of aggression in the region, and especially the ballistic missile launches, which we object to, and we are going to punish, it appears to be, for now, with sanctions.
Yeah, and they made clear today from the White House point of view that they were not pulling back on Russia's sanctions.
But we had tremendous success on The Apprentice, and when I ran for president, I had to leave the show. That's when I knew for sure I was doing it. And they hired a big movie star, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to take my place. And we know how that turned out. The ratings went right down the tubes. It's been a total disaster. And Mark will never, ever bet against Trump again. And I want to just pray for Arnold, if we can, for those ratings, okay?
Good news on a community coming together during quite a challenging time. A devastating fire destroyed a Texas mosque over the weekend. The fire broke out early last Saturday at the Victoria Islamic Center, burning it to the ground. But the community in Texas has rallied around this group, and one synagogue and at least 4 churches have offered space where their Muslim neighbors can worship until the mosque can be rebuilt. And get this, a GoFundMe page has already raised more than $1 million of an $850,000 goal to help the mosque rebuild. Joining us by phone is Dr. Shahid Hashmi. He's president of the Victoria Islamic Center in Victoria, Texas. And Dr. Hashmi, I know you're probably very busy. I appreciate the time. I'm just curious, how did you come to Victoria, Texas? How did it become your home?
After my residency, I moved to Texas for a change of weather. That I was looking for warm weather. And I've been in Victoria for the last 32 years.
32 years. I laugh because I know you did your residency in New York City. And we're in winter in New York City now, so we could all understand wanting to move to a warmer location for sure.
That's correct.
So tell us a little bit about this fire. Our viewers are seeing the image on their screen. How did it start?
That's still under investigation at this point. At Friday night at 2 a.m. Saturday morning, I was called to that the mosque is on fire, and as I rushed over there, the flames were just out of the building, and I watched it for the next 3 hours, completely burn it down.
We could see the fire. I mean, we could see how devastating it is. You know, because of the news over the weekend and the executive order, there have been many that have rushed to try to connect the two. And I know you have really said we have to wait for the investigation to come forward. But I think the bigger story here might be the reaction from the community. Tell us about that.
This community is a wonderful community. I've known practically everybody here, and they all came together, every creed, every faith, every race, joining us in support and prayers. And several churches and an office center and a synagogue, they offered that we could use their place temporarily for our worships. Now we are back on our property. We have a mobile school building we have been using for children, which survived the fire, so we are using that for our services. And the support has been phenomenal across the whole world. As you mentioned about the GoFund, we've raised over $1 million in donations, and we already started the process for reconstruction.
Wow, that's amazing. We have the GoFundMe page, and we're also showing some pictures as well from a Sunday prayer service that brought all sorts of faiths together, all folks from the community to rally around you. So we wanted to highlight this good news story of a great community that's coming together. And Dr. Hashmi, we'd like to come and visit. We hope you the best in the rebuilding, and we'll make sure that our viewers also have the GoFundMe page. Perhaps they'd like to contribute as well to help support you. Thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And great. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. President Trump making an unannounced trip, look at this, to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware to attend the dignified transfer of Chief Petty Officer William Ryan Owens. There's his picture. The 36-year-old SEAL Team 6 member was killed during a weekend raid in Yemen, the first service member to be killed after Donald Trump became our president. Jane Horton is a Gold Star wife and is here with a powerful response to the president's visit. Thank you, Jane, for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Your husband was killed in 2011. His name was Chris Horton. First of all, tell the audience at home what happened to Chris.
Chris was an Army sniper that deployed to Afghanistan in 2011, and about 3 months into his deployment, he was ambushed and he was shot to death with 2 other people.
Wow. How long had y'all been married?
We had been married a little over 2 years.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
What was your reaction when you saw the president and Ivanka when they were heading to Dover to pay their respects?
I will tell you, I was sitting at my desk and the lump in my throat started to get bigger and the tears in my eyes started to form. The president's actions did not go unnoticed by the military community, and especially the Gold Star family community. You know, for the past several years when we've been involved in wars that have largely gone unnoticed by the average American, and when we're still losing some of our nation's finest treasures overseas, to have a president acknowledge that and to give the fallen the honor, dignity, and respect that they deserve, and to be with the family at such a somber, special place such as Dover was just overwhelming, and hopefully we're hoping that it sets a precedent for the future, that he'll continue to do things like this, but we are so grateful for his gesture.
Did President Obama come to your husband's funeral?
He did not.
Did you ever talk to him? Did you hear from him?
The vast majority of families of the fallen from the Obama era got form letters that weren't signed by him. They were signed by an auto pen. He did, on some occasions, go to Dover to be with the families at the dignified transfers, but it was not something that he regularly did, and we're really hoping that more is paid in the Trump administration to our fallen. They deserve more, and we're really hoping that the American people pay attention to these deaths that largely go unnoticed.
But it's been a different story with President Trump for your family. I understand that you've been talking to him, you've been friends with him for the last 5 years, is that right, and talked to him several times?
I've met him on several occasions. He's always been very, very kind to me, always honored my husband and wanted to hear about him, and he's been a wonderful supporter of the troops.
In fact, he honored your husband back in September before he won the presidency. Let's take a listen to what he said about your husband.
Jane lost her husband, Specialist Chris Horton, in Afghanistan on September 9th, 2011. And Jane, it's such an honor to have you here. And I hear so many things about Chris, and he was a winner. And thank you very much on behalf of the country. Thank you.
Now, you have said that you speak out because the fallen don't have a voice. If Chris were here today, what would be his message to President Trump?
To win the wars that he gave his life for, to continue to fight them, to give the resources to our war fighters, let them fight the wars, give them the roles of engagement that they need to win, and continue to give the troops on the ground the supplies they need, and also the capacity to win the war.
Well, Jane, I know when you married him, you had a plan mapped out for your life, and that wasn't able to happen because you guys made the ultimate sacrifice for all of us, and we can't thank you enough for that. I wish you all the best, and I hope you find love again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. God bless.
Let's deal in Speaker Paul Ryan. He joins us from our nation's capital. Mr. Speaker, we apologize in advance. At some point during our conversation this morning, we're probably going to go to the president.
Totally got it. Thanks for dealing me in, Steve. Ainsley, Brian, how you doing?
Good morning, Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I'm just stunned by the amount of pushback you guys are getting in everything you're doing, yet the president's approval rating, according to Gallup, is actually up 5 points, 49%. I guess the American people aren't as upset as Democrats. How has that changed the way you're doing things, being that there's such pushback everywhere?
It doesn't. That's just, how's that for an answer?
That's a good one and a short one. But there is the Democrats are completely freaking out, Mr. Speaker.
They are. It doesn't change anything. We've got a plan. We ran on an agenda. We have a plan with the president on what we want to get done in 2017. Get jobs, reform the tax code, repeal and replace Obamacare so we can save the American health care system, get the border secured. There's a lot of things we've got to do. We're not going to get distracted with these kinds of tactics. We're going to get our work done because that's exactly why people voted for us. Look, I kind of know the feeling. I remember what it was like when we lost the House, the Senate, and the White House. It was an awful feeling. So I can relate to Democrats on that front, which is I understand why they're upset because they had a bad election and they're upset about it. That's not going to deter us from getting our work done and doing what we are elected to do.
In a Fox exclusive interview, Secretary Kelly, he said that the wall is going to be built down on the Mexican border in the next 2 years. Is that true?
I think it's up to him because it's really the executive branch that has to execute the policy. We have already authorized this, meaning the law was passed almost 10 years ago, and then we will give the financing to Secretary Kelly to go build the wall and the border security plan. So it's really up to them as to how fast they can execute this policy. I think that's great. He's the kind of guy who can get this sort of thing done. He will have the funding to do it, and he already has the authorization to do it.
Mr. Speaker, I understand that the president is somewhat disappointed that there is not tax reform done right away, that the plan doesn't seem to be agreed upon or done yet. I always thought you wake up in the morning with a plan like that. You just didn't have the power to implement it. Where is tax reform on your things to do list, and how ready is it to put on the president's desk?
Yeah, so it's just a sequence of things. So we've already got a tax reform plan. We ran on it. You can go to better.gop and take a look at the one that the House Republicans put out there. That's the plan we're working off. We're working with all of our colleagues. But it's because the American healthcare system is in the middle of a collapse. It's because 5 states only have one health insurance choice. 1 out of 3 counties only have one health insurance choice. Deductibles are triple that of people in the large group market. Premiums are going up double-digit again. So we feel the need to rescue this system here, and that's why we're going with health care first, and that's the first budget. And then in the spring, when we do our second budget, that's where tax reform comes. So it's just simply, you can't do them at the same time because of the way the budget system works. So it's repeal and replace Obamacare so we can save and repair the healthcare system of this country. And then it's tax reform, which gets us economic growth. And that's just the way that the budget law works.
Now, Mr. Speaker, you just used the word repair twice.
Yes.
There's a Bloomberg, story out there.
I want to clarify this because there's a miscommunication going on. If we're going to repair the U.S. healthcare system and get back to a patient-centered system that actually does lower costs and gives people peace of mind, you must repeal and replace Obamacare.
Right.
So what kind of got going on here is a confluence of words. To repair American healthcare system, you have to repeal and replace this law, and that's what we're doing.
So it's not a change.
No.
This Bloomberg story says at your Philly retreat that somebody snuck into and recorded parts of Donald Trump and whatnot, a number of Republicans so upset about how things are going, reportedly, according to this story, that you've moved from the language repeal and replace to repeal and repair.
No, we must repair the system, but to repair the system, you repeal and replace Obamacare. Obamacare is collapsing. It's failing. It's collapsing under its own weight. If we had lost the election, Democrats would be rushing to try and save the system from collapse. So that's the point. And I think what it is people sort of reporting or miscommunicating. If we're going to repair the American healthcare system, which is in the middle of a collapse right now, you have to repeal and replace this law.
Okay, so you said you have to do that first, but going back to Brian's point about tax reform, initially we heard it's going to be in the first 100 days. Then suddenly you're talking about...
That's why I put a 200-day plan out.
Then it's the 200 days. Now they're talking about, well, maybe by the end of the year, maybe by the beginning of next year.
No, that's not true. I don't know who's saying that, but that's not the case. This is the first 200 days. It's just the way the budget works, that we won't be able to get the ability to write our tax reform bill until our spring budget passes, and then we write that through the summer. So this is a 200-day plan. There's nobody talking about pushing this into 2018.
Right.
What's after that? What's the next issue?
Well, so part of our basic plan is, I just said, repeal, replace Obamacare, while we're working on things simultaneously. Regulatory reform is critical. We're passing regulatory bills right now, going back into the Obama administration, and getting rid of very harmful regulations that cost us jobs, like the jobs in coal country. Right. We're also working on the border security. Then, with our spring budget, Ainsley, we've got to rebuild our military. We've got to get some fiscal discipline so we can get us toward a balanced budget. Right. These are the kinds of things that we have to do. So close our budget deficits, work on our debt, get tax reform, which is economic growth, and rebuild our military. All of those things are things we're working on in this 200-day plan.
And I understand rebuilding the military, and I think President Trump has taken an interesting tact in drilling down on the defense contractors. Yes. They might have been the way they caved. It makes me think we've been gouged for a lot of years.
I have never seen anything like this before. This is my 19th year in Congress. I have never seen a president. I mean, this is what you get when you get a business guy in office. A president gets so granular in Defense Department expenditures and to go quickly and get savings. This means we can stretch that Pentagon dollar even further and get more equipment without hitting the taxpayer harder, so that our men and women in uniform don't have to choose between fiscal discipline and getting the tools they need.
And I don't want you to...
It's actually really something that's exciting to see.
Right, and it totally caught a lot of people by surprise. But real quick, you did not mention anything about a $1 trillion stimulus. That's something that would bring Democrats in. I don't know where you find $1 trillion. I don't have it. Ainsley has some. Steve has a little. But where does that stand?
Yesterday you said I had $1 billion. Now I have $1 trillion. What is it, Brian?
So we're going to start negotiations with Ainsley and Steve in the summer about how they're going to help us finance the infrastructure package. Just joking. So, no, that comes out of our spring budget as well. Yep. So I call it fiscal space. We have to come up with the fiscal space for the infrastructure package. But remember, this isn't $1 trillion of taxpayer spending. It is how do we leverage private sector dollars so we can leverage more private sector spending on infrastructure like pipelines and things like that. FAA reform. We have to overhaul the entire air traffic control system. That's a huge infrastructure piece with airports. That's all part of this.
Absolutely. And as you said a moment ago, you got a businessman now in that job. He's doing a lot. You know what? I think he has tweeted maybe 5 or 6 or 7 times already this morning. Mr. Speaker, are the tweets growing on you? Do you get what he's doing?
You know, I don't actually see them all.
You hear about them.
I definitely hear about them. There's no two ways about that. But I'm pretty busy in the day job, so I'm just not hanging out on Twitter. But I do. They are growing on me. Like I tell everybody, this is going to be an unconventional presidency. What I think, look, I tried to become vice president in 2012. We lost the election. He won the election. And what I think one of the big differences is he has learned how to communicate straight to people. He is giving voice to people who felt like they haven't been listened to in this country. And I think that's an amazing thing. And I think that's largely what he's able to accomplish with Twitter.
All right. Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, thank you very much, sir. We know you got a busy day today. Thanks for spending a little time with us.
Fox News Radio, I'm Kathleen Maloney. An early start for the Senate tomorrow. Votes expected before 7 a.m. First, on a resolution to scale back some Obama administration regulations, then a procedural vote on President Trump's controversial nominee for Education Secretary.
Republicans will need to win 51 votes to break a filibuster on Betsy DeVos's nomination. 2 GOP senators have already announced no votes on final confirmation, though Alaska's Lisa Murkowski and Maine's Susan Collins could still agree to end debate. But if no Democrat joins in supporting DeVos's final confirmation vote expected next week, the vice president will likely be needed to break a rare Senate tie.
Fox's Jared Halpern on Capitol Hill. A third congressional committee will investigate Russia's interference into the presidential election. Add the Senate Judiciary Committee to the House and Senate Intelligence Committees looking into Russian hacking. The Trump administration is reportedly considering sanctions against Iran for its recent test of a medium-range missile.
Iran's defense minister said the missile test was defensive in nature and vowed that his country will continue its missile activities forcefully. The UN Security Council has referred the issue for further investigation. The Pentagon believes these ballistic missile tests are a clear violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2231.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. President Trump's chief of staff, Reince Priebus, and top strategist Steve Bannon had what's called a productive meeting with Australia's ambassador at the White House. An official says they conveyed the president's deep admiration for the Australian people. This coming after a contentious phone call between President Trump and the Australian Prime Minister that caused some tension between the two allies. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off. I can't believe it. I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
On his first full day in office, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson addressed Defense Department employees.
Hundreds of them have signed on to what's known as a dissent memo, officially objecting to the Trump administration's executive order halting immigration from several countries. Tillerson avoided discussing the memo specifically, though acknowledged the state employees who are unhappy with the election results.
Each of us is entitled to the expression of our political beliefs, but we cannot let our personal convictions overwhelm our ability to work as one team.
As for his first-day calendar, Tillerson is scheduled to meet with the German foreign minister. At the State Department, Rich Edson, Fox News.
The U.S. military is investigating last weekend's raid by special forces in Yemen. A Navy SEAL was killed, and innocent civilians may have been hit by gunfire from aircraft assisting troops on the ground. The Pentagon disputes published reports that the operation was compromised. Correction officers paid tribute to a Delaware prison guard who lost his life at the state's largest prison.
I'd like to start with observing a moment of silence.
Jeffrey Klopp, president of the Corrections Officers Association of Delaware, tearfully remembered Sergeant Stephen Floyd Sr., who was killed as a prison standoff came to an end this morning. He says Sergeant Floyd, a 16-year veteran, saved others as inmates took control.
Sergeant Floyd told a couple of the lieutenants to get out of the building and that it was a trap.
Klopp gave few details of the incident, but described fellow officers as crushed about Floyd's death that Klopp called unnecessary. Delaware's governor has promised a full investigation. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Even before they're born, the twins Beyonce and Jay-Z are expecting are wildly popular. An Instagram post announcing them is the most liked ever, with more than 8 million likes and counting. I'm Kathy.